Hello and thanks for joining us. The UN Development Programme Chief warns of alarming trends in the latest Human Development Report. We'll also take a look at why and how that's happening. Also, China completes construction of record-breaking deep-water jacket structure in Guangdong province. We'll show you some footage on that, and shortly I'll be joined by DARRYL. He is an analyst with BowerGroupAsia. He'll be walking us through investments or investing in Malaysia right here on Bernama. We begin the world with this. United Nations spokesperson Stefan Dujarric has reported on the efforts of the Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, to provide mental health and psychosocial support particularly for children affected by ongoing conflicts. Now, since October 7th, humanitarian partners have reached over 267,000 children and 27,000 caregivers in Gaza, offering essential services and clothing. However, concerns have arisen over civilian casualties, including the death of one UNRWA staff member and injuries to 22 others in an Israeli strike on a food distribution center in Rafah.
Turning to the situation in Gaza, our colleagues from the Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs report that the bombardment and fighting there continues. We and our partners are working to provide mental health and psychosocial support, particularly for children. Since the escalation of this on October 7th, humanitarian partners working on child protection issues have reached some 267,000 children across Gaza, as well as 27,000 caregivers with essential services, including mental health and psychosocial support, as well as clothing for the... Turning to a crisis closer to here, I can tell you that in Haiti, we of course continue to be very concerned by the continuing impact of violence on civilians and the ability of our colleagues to deliver aid. Despite all these challenges, our humanitarian colleagues are continuing to deliver assistance to those who have been displaced by the most recent violence, while continuing their regular programs in other parts of Haiti. To date, the World Food Program has delivered some 75,000 meals to those displaced by the recent violence.
Now, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi met with Dutch caretaker Prime Minister Mark Rutte in Cairo to discuss the Israel-Gaza war. El-Sisi cautioned against Israel's proposed ground military operation in Rafah, which houses over 1.5 million displaced people. Many Gazans sought refuge in Rafah after Israeli evacuation orders. Israel plans to establish humanitarian islands in Rafah, but Egypt warns that Palestinian movement into its territory could endanger peace. Meanwhile, Spanish Foreign Minister José Manuel Albares and Jordanian counterpart Ayman al-Safadi met in Amman to discuss the Israel-Hamas conflict. They emphasized the critical need for ceasefire and the swift delivery of humanitarian aid to Gaza. Albares affirmed Spain's support for a Palestinian state and the UNRWA proposing an international peace conference with broad backing. Al-Safadi condemned Netanyahu's actions and called for a binding UN Security Council resolution and sanctions. Bilaterally, they solidified agreements and political consultations and diplomatic cooperation while reviewing economic sectors. An Israeli drone strike near Tyre, Lebanon, killed a Hamas member, Hadi Mustafa, and a Syrian citizen on a motorcycle. The strike follows a meeting between top Hamas and Hezbollah officials in Beirut and collapsed talks with Israel. Amid concerns of conflict spillover, the US and other governments strive to prevent escalation between Hezbollah militants and the Israeli military in the Palestinian enclave. Now, meanwhile, in New York, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres warned that sustainable development goals are off track, with gender equality being a key concern. At current rates, 340 million women and girls risk extreme poverty by 2030. Guterres highlighted conflicts worldwide, citing sexual violence in Sudan, Afghanistan, Gaza and Israel. He criticized attacks on women's freedoms by populists and demagogues, urging traditions of oppression to remain in the past. Guterres spoke during a UN commission on the status of women town hall meeting.
Crisis and the debt crisis in many countries. And these are hitting women and girls hard.
Now we take a look at what's happening in France at this point. Finnish Prime Minister Petteri Orpo addressed the European Parliament, stressing the need for unity against Russia amid fears of prolonged conflict. Orpo urges UN nations to support Ukraine financially, warning of the high cost if Russia prevails.
Everyone has to wake up. Russia continues to commit war crimes in Ukraine. It has shifted to a war economy. Russia is evidently preparing for a long conflict with the West and represents a permanent and essential military threat to Europe. If we, as United Europe, fail to respond sufficiently to this challenge, the coming years will be filled with danger and the looming threat of attack. Supporting Ukraine is not only a moral imperative, but also a strategic necessity. The cost of Russian military success would far exceed the investment required to support Ukraine. Imagine what will happen next if Russia succeeds. I say that every euro spent on Ukraine today is a low price compared to the alternative costs if Russia wins.
Применять средства массового поражения.
We take a quick break. Of course, when we come back, we'll take a look at what's happening right here on Bernama World. We're taking a look at investments in Germany at this point. The Prime Minister is there trying to get business together to make investments or make Malaysia a better place to invest in. We'll come back with that shortly, right after a break, right here on Bernama World. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us right here on Bernama World. I'm Jared Ratnam. Welcome back on POV or Point of View right here on Bernama World. We delve into the economic implications of Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim's visit to Germany, focusing on the investment perspective. Anwar's discussions with German officials and businesses highlight Malaysia's appeal as an investment destination, particularly in sectors such as palm oil, trade agreements, skill enhancement, and SME partnerships. At this point, I'm joined by DARRYL Tan of BowerGroupAsia. DARRYL, thanks so much for doing this. I'd like to begin with this though. How does Anwar Ibrahim's push for fair treatment of Malaysia's palm oil exports in Germany impact investor sentiment within the palm oil industry? DARRYL?
Thanks, Gerard. I think overall, this has been good for investor sentiment. Largely for two main themes, right? I think what Anwar was pushing was a very consistent stance for Malaysia, and Malaysia has always advocated for fair treatment of our palm oil exports. And also more recently, is with regards to the ruling by WTO 2 weeks ago, which ruled largely in favor of Malaysia, saying that EU's treatment of Malaysia's exports of palm oil exports has been unfair, right? And this has been good also because it shows that Malaysia is willing to negotiate and seek compromises for existing channels. It shows that you're willing to play by existing laws, and overall, we are adhering to existing global frameworks, right? Which is something good overall for investment sentiment for the industry and in Malaysia in general.
Right. Now, I'd like to move on to PMX's talks on the Malaysia-EU Free Trade Agreement, or the FTA, and the scoping exercise to address negotiation gaps. It suggests progress in trade relations to most of us. Now, how might this affect investor confidence, especially for industries affected by trade regulations?
So overall, EU is already, our fourth largest trading partner. definitely it would increase investor confidence, especially since Malaysia, talks for the EU-Malaysia Free Trade Agreement has stalled for well over a decade. We've seen Singapore and Vietnam conclude their own respective FTAs with the EU back in 2019, 2020, and talks are still ongoing for the Indonesia, Philippines, and Thailand. I think overall, when investors look at the region in general and they see that Malaysia has not had these talks going on for over a decade, it's something which is important also because they're not only looking at Malaysia as an individual country, but they're also looking how it plays overall within the region. Right now, we've had the signing of the EU Malaysia Partnership and Cooperation Agreement since 2020, in December 2022. And that's definitely a good start. It shows that you're willing to make progress and that you've definitely found flexibilities and willingness to compromise within the two economies to progress in these trade relations.
Now, the proposed collaboration between Malaysia and Germany to enhance skills among MSMEs appears promising, or through the looking glass, it seems that way. What investment opportunities do you see arising from such partnerships, and how might they benefit for both economies at this point?
So the investment opportunities, I think, can be classified into two types, right? One is the existing opportunities that we already have, and the other area is for the potential opportunities or those frontier tech opportunities. In terms of the existing opportunities, we already have very similar economic structures which are built around SMEs. So definitely we benefit from the ongoing knowledge transfer in terms of technical skills and management skills. We are also looking at the trade between the two countries, especially in the fields of engineering technology. We're looking at essentially a lot of trade comes down to component production for things such as semiconductors, aerospace devices, medical devices, and chemicals. So they've definitely seen those investment opportunities growing in the long term. But we've also seen within Prime Minister Anwar's speech, he was also talking about renewable energy as well as the digital economy, right? And these two things are fairly new for Germany, or they're fairly new pushes for Germany. In terms of renewable energy, following the 2022 energy crisis for Germany during the Ukraine-Russia war, there was a sudden realization for the German government to push for energy diversification. And this has also been reflected in the kind of foreign investments that they've been making. And definitely Malaysia being one of the renewable energy champions within the region can definitely benefit from stronger collaborations in this area. The second new area is also in terms of digital economy. So one good example is, for example, that in the realm of finance, right? Malaysia is definitely one of the pioneers in terms of cashless services. We have a lot of agreements within the region as well to have cross-border financial agreements and things like that. We definitely have that kind of digital infrastructure in place as well. And this is something that Germany has definitely been looking forward to. We can definitely look forward to more investments, especially in terms of infrastructure and the digital economy between the two countries as a whole.
Right, if you're just joining us on the program, we're currently speaking to DARRYL Tan, a senior analyst from BowerGroupAsia. We're talking about PMX, talking about investing in Malaysia, or come invest in Malaysia. Now, the PM's call for German and European firms to invest in Malaysia highlights its skilled labor force and modern infrastructure. Now, what specific factors make Malaysia an attractive investment destination compared to other Southeast Asian countries at this point?
So in this regard, there are two broad themes where Malaysia has competitive advantage. So the first is we have a skilled labor force, right? In terms of STEM graduates in the region, we are one of the highest. As of 2020, I think 39% of our tertiary education graduates major in the STEM fields. And that definitely looks attractive, especially since Germany focuses on things such as technology and digital industries, right? But also with regards to the skilled labor force, they're also looking at a relatively high language proficiency in English. And in 2023, an international survey showed that we are the third highest in Asia in terms of English proficiency after Singapore and the Philippines. So definitely in terms of a skilled labor force, we have the competitive advantage there. But the second theme that we want to look at is ecosystem, right? So within Malaysia, we have industrial parks and hubs, which are dedicated to specific industries such as E&E and chemicals. And these are things that definitely Germany is looking at. But beyond those industrial parks, we also have a wide ecosystem of local suppliers who already have the skills and components necessary to support these foreign companies which are operating within these industrial parks. I think also one thing we're definitely looking at is the push for renewable energy, and this is also something new which I've alluded to earlier, right? So something that German companies are looking more and more towards is supplying their factories and manufacturing hubs with renewable energy. There has been a push from Malaysia for that renewable energy. We've seen that within the National Energy Transition Roadmap, and we can definitely expect that to be an attractive investment point or attractive point for future investors from Germany into Malaysia.
Right. We've got about a minute and a half left, and I'd really like to digress and talk about this. Now, with all this business coming into Malaysia, we need to get our act together. Now, within the public service and the corporate world or the private and public sector, how much must we ready ourselves in order to make this a hub or an investment hub, to make Malaysia an investment hub again?
So we currently have a lot of roadmaps, right? I've just mentioned one, which is the National Energy Transition Roadmap. We have the new Industrial Master Plan. I think it's all about the execution and ensuring that there is continuity in those policies. For example, in 2023, Prime Minister Anwar announced the Global Services hub incentives. And that's something which we also have yet to see how it materializes, right? So it's really not a matter of just putting up roadmaps. Now it's a matter of executing those roadmaps and ensuring that people have access, or potential investors have access to those incentives. It's not a difficult bureaucratic process to get a hold of those incentives. I think that's really one of the key things that investors are looking at now in order to ensure that Malaysia remains as an attractive investment destination.
DARRYL, thank you very much for this. It was a pleasure having you on the show. We do hope to speak to you again at some point in the future. That was DARRYL Tan from BowerGroupAsia joining us to talk about PMX, talking about coming and investing in Malaysia. It's time for me to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll take a look at the gas leak explosion in northern China. Stay tuned for the full story right here on Bernama World. Welcome back. Former Thai Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra was recently paroled after corruption charges. He made a rare public appearance at a Bangkok temple accompanied by his daughter. Toppled in a 2006 coup, Thaksin returned from self-exile last year. His lenient treatment, including a commuted one-year prison sentence, sparked controversy and accusations of political deals. Thaksin, wearing a neck brace, prayed at the temple without commenting to media inquiries. Apparently, this has added to the ongoing intrigue surrounding his case. Now in France, European Union lawmakers are poised to finalize approval of the bloc's artificial intelligence law after favourable vote yesterday. The legislation, 5 years in the making, will set the world-leading rules expected to be enforced later this year. The AI Act, proposed by MEPs Brando Benife and Dragos Tudorashi, aims to regulate AI serving as a global benchmark. It mandates risk mitigation and cybersecurity measures for AI models like OpenAI's ChatGPT, effective next year. Next, rescuers swiftly responded to a suspected gas leak explosion in northern China, which originated from a fried chicken shop in Sanhe City, claiming 2 lives and injuring 26. The blast occurred near Beijing, with streets cordoned off as firefighters battled flames while smoke billowed from the building. Search and rescue efforts continue as authorities investigate the cause. Emergency services are still at the scene, aiding victims and assessing damages. Meanwhile, Indonesian rescuers intensified the search for missing Taiwanese tourist Shin Chang after a boat capsized near North Jakarta Seribu Island waters. Deploying hundreds of personnel, Coast Guard ships and rubber boat teams are carrying out dives of up to 17 meters, while patrol boats comb a 106 nautical mile radius. Hindered by high waves and limited visibility, the search continues for Chang, who vanished in the incident involving the Pari Kudus boat carrying 35 people. China completed construction of a record-breaking deep-water jacket structure in the Guangdong province. The Haichi-2 jacket, standing at 338.5 meters, weighing 37,000 tons, set an Asian record for height, weight, operational depth, and construction speed. Designed to withstand severe sea conditions, it integrates advanced systems like digital twin and submarine environment monitoring. Scheduled for installation by month end at an oil field, it aims to boost economic development in the Greater Bay Area. Now, a Texas man who spent decades using an iron lung after contracting polio as a child died at the age of 78. Paul Alexander's longtime friend Daniel Spinks says he died on Monday at a Dallas hospital. Alexander was 6 when he began using an iron lung, a cylinder that encased his body as the air pressure in the chamber forced air in and out of his lungs. May he rest in peace. And rape flowers across China are reaching peak bloom, drawing tourists to Tianfu Agricultural Expo Park in Chengdu. Spreading over 165 acres, including colorful varieties, it's Sichuan's largest rape flower field. New varieties selected by experts offer longer bloom and stronger fragrance, serving both ornamental and oil-producing purposes. This marks the park's 3rd year in the color rape flower industry, offering cultural and tourism projects to attract over 300,000 visitors, expected to last until next weekend.
新品种根据今年的这个试验的情况目前来看景观效果是非常好的。
And with that, we bring the crossing of borders and time zones to a close for now. For full articles, go to Bernama.com and you'll get all the long reads you need. Until next time, I'm Jared Rutnam. This has been The World on Bernama TV. Thanks for watching.